So we've been looking at this graph of temperature anomalies over time in order to try to answer the question, what is happening to global temperatures? And we have looked into the fact that there's a lot of variation in this graph. Different time periods have very different patterns, so it seems, and we're trying to understand what is the overall trend. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to take you to a website. If you notice this graph, the data stops before 2020, so let's get some more current information here. And the NOAA website has this great climate at a glance dashboard where you can set it to display all sorts of different types of time series and averages and such. So I've got it set to show us the same set of data that we were just looking at, except that now we've got the data, the most recent data. So here it is, and you can see it looks very similar, except that we have a little bit more data at the end here now. So let's look at variations over sections. So when I look at this graph, I see three main sections. There's a section of negative anomalies, and then there's this section where it switches back and forth, and then all the anomalies are positive. So let's look at the trends there. And you can see that this graph will actually do the math for you to show you the actual trends over a certain time period. So I'm going to start with the 1880 through like 1938 here. So 1938, and if I hit plot, it has now drawn me the mathematical trend line for this section that I specified. And you can see up here it's telling us that the trend is a positive 0.01 degrees Celsius per decade. So even though all of these anomalies are negative, they're below the average temperature that was calculated from 1910 to 2000. The trend is still rising, not very fast, but it is a positive trend. So let's take a look at let's do the middle section now, which around 1939 through, let's say, 1977. Plot. So now we've got the trend line for this middle section, and this is slightly negative, negative 0.01 degrees Celsius per decade change, so a slight negative trend there. Now let's look at the last section here, and pretty obviously it's going to be a positive trend, but let's see what the value is. So 77 through the most current. And here we've got, like we expected, is positive, and it's positive 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade. So what happens when we take that all together? Let's take a look at the whole thing. 1880 through 2021, display trend. And here it is. So over the entire data set, 0.07 degrees Celsius rise per decade.